People like to vilify people with money because it reminds them of all the stuff that they don't have and reminds them they could go get it.
Yeah.
That's why it's easier to think that rich people are bad, because it makes you feel better about the fact that you're not rich, because you immediately tell yourself like, oh, I'm not that type of a person. I'm not a bad person, so I can't be rich. So it's
Hmm.
easier for you to believe that rich people are bad rather than believe that it's possible for you to do good in the world and also make a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, that's why in pop culture, rich people are vilified so much, because people who make movies and people who make television shows, they're marketing to the broad public of people who
Right.
are objectively not rich. So when you're,
And
you
they're
know,
taking those people's money.
well, exactly. I mean, like all the people that are producing the movies are people who have a lot of money, but they
Right.
picture rich people as being bad. And majority of like television, film, that entire industry just depicts rich people as being bad people, because that's the marketing message that the masses want to hear. Like
Right.
they know their end customer. Their end customer is not rich, and portraying rich people in a negative light confirms their own belief about what they think rich people are, because they don't actually know any rich people. And
Yep.
most people won't know rich people. Like the only way to know rich people, if you grew up kind of like how I did without knowing them, is being intentional about going and getting around them. And most people will never do that because it's not a priority to them. So
Yep.
the only exposure they get to rich people is watching shows like Billions, or that murder mystery Knives Out, the Glass Onion one on Netflix.
I
Like,
never heard of that.
yeah, they watch some of these things that just they again like continuously vilify the rich people, like suggesting that the only way to get rich is to get over on people, that the rich people are secretly bad, and they exist in these high societies and they hate poor people, and like there's just this constant rhetoric that exists to make people who have a lot of money seem like they're really bad people.
Yeah.
When in my experience, the people who I've met who have a lot of money are
The best.
typically forces for good, and not to say
Yeah.
that there aren't some bad people, because there are some bad people, but typically money is not the factor that made them good or bad. Money
Right.
is typically a magnifier
Magnifier.
of who
Yep.
you currently are. And so the more you get of it, the more of that person you're going to become. What if I made 1 million a year? What if I made 2 million? What if I made 4 million? What if I made 12 million? Like in that gap exists a lot of potential for people to completely change everything about their life, and have that money just be a magnifier of who they are. But then that's why it's so important to work on yourself constantly, to develop yourself, to develop your skill sets, to develop your soft skills like compassion and kindness, and different things like that. Because while you're on, and that's why I find that like a lot of successful people with money that I know, I find them to be really high quality good people, because of the work that they had to put in to achieve the level of wealth that they have. Like not a lot of people have sharpened themselves as individuals to become that version of themselves in order to be able to achieve what they've achieved. So the
Yep.
process of becoming rich actually is what made them a good person, because it's a
Yep.
really difficult path, and it's not
Right.
one that most people will take. So the fact that
It's
you took that path and then push through failure after failure, obstacle after obstacle, and you learned over and over again, you shed terrible versions of yourself over and over again continuously for years on end, like that turned you into a better person objectively. And then once you earned the money, then you become a magnification of the better person that you became by getting the money to begin with. And that's why you don't see that it translates with people who like win the lottery, or people
yep.
even sometimes who make it to professional sports when they're young, or people who inherited all their money, right? The trust fund people, like you don't see that those two things correlate, because they weren't the ones that put in the effort to create the wealth.
Right.
I think
Exactly.
there's a correlation there.
You mentioned, and I was like, wow, that's, I've had the problem feeling guilty about money and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you could explain, you said, this is kind of paraphrasing, but you said something like feeling guilty where I don't need to be. I shouldn't be feeling guilty. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I grew up, very religious. So there was a lot of guilt associated with having money until you had money. That was like kind of the weird thing in religion, right? It's like they vilify the pursuit of money, but if you have money, they want you to come to their church and give you all their money so they can build buildings and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird. It's like It's like they vilify money until somebody with money comes on the campus and then they worship that person. And it was always a disconnect to me. But anyway,
Yeah.
I feel like I had a ton of guilt around trying to go make money. Like just admitting to myself that I wanted to make money was a difficult thing for me to admit to myself out loud. It was difficult for me to say the words out loud
Yep.
because it made me feel instantly like this is not a worthy pursuit in life. That's a terrible thing to want. And yeah, it's just something I've learned, that if you want something, you don't have to explain why you want it. You can just want it. And then as long as you're not hurting yourself or other people by going and getting it, then you should be able to want something and go and get it. It's part of the beauty of living in America. Like you want something, you can go and get it. And you shouldn't have to explain or justify to anybody why you want it. You should just be able to go get it. So
Standing ovation.
yeah. So it took me a little while to kind of get over that guilt. And I think in some ways it still affects me to this day. But yeah, it did take me a little while.
I really appreciate that. God bless you. I really appreciate that because it affected me for the longest time. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel guilty for wanting money. She didn't sleep on the streets with me. Nobody did. Except maybe Jesus. You could say Jesus did, or God, or whatever you want to say, but I'm the one that did this internal work, and it was very hard. I don't have to feel guilty. I can want what I want, and I want it, and not that it doesn't really matter, I guess, but to other people, but it matters to me. I'm doing this because I want to help people. The reason that I wanted to meet you and people like you who have money is because I wanted to make sure, for myself, like, yeah, wealthy people are good. So it's kind of like you gave me permission to want it, even though, like you said, I really didn't need it, but I felt like I did.
Well, good. I'm glad I was helpful.
Yeah, you and Evan Carmichael, and I met him, and Gary Vaynerchuk. I got to meet Grant and Elena, but Tom Bilyeu, and I met him and Lisa, and just amazing people, and I'm just so freaking grateful. Is there anything that you want to tell people? Like, say there's somebody out there struggling right now and they're feeling guilty over wanting money. Maybe they're having, like a crisis with God, or maybe just with their own self, or whatever. And they're feeling guilty because they want to have money, they want to be wealthy. What would you tell that person? Like, like your former self kind of thing. Yeah,
I guess go make better friends. First of all, go make friends who have money, who, it's really easy for people without money to vilify people who have money. So go get around people who do have money and see what their life looks like, see how they behave, see what their conversations are. You'll probably find that they're less spiteful, they're less gossipy. They spend their time more talking about productive things than unproductive things. They spend their time doing productive things rather than just staying quote unquote busy. You'll find a lot of differences between the two crowds. And again, this is not to say that all people with money are good people. It's not saying that at all. It's just saying money doesn't define whether you're good or bad.
Right.
So that'd be the first thing. The second thing would just be to interrogate yourself. Whenever I'm in a state of like uncertainty, or just like I'm not sure what I'm doing, or I feel lost, or I feel burnt out, or something like that, I try to interrogate myself as much as I can. Meaning, like, I just ask myself questions, and I'll journal and just like write down questions. And a lot of times I don't even write down the answers to the questions. I just write down the question and stare at the question and ponder and think and be with myself and my thoughts for a second to kind of gather my purpose again and reconnect with why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that's been a helpful practice for me.
So I can personally tell you that Travis is a great guy. He has a free podcast, Travis Makes Friends, okay? So check out that on YouTube, and he's in all the podcast platforms, audio and visual, the videos and all that. Also, he has a Facebook group, which is so cool, which helps people podcast a profit, and I'll put the link there. It's free to join, and you just go there and you just got to follow the rules, but you can network with people and you can post questions, and there's a lot of really cool, friendly people that'll help you out. You need a friend like this on your side. Thank you again, Travis. You're worth it. You can check out both of the full episodes that Travis and I did together in this playlist called Minute with a Millionaire. My name is Liberty V Justice, and there's no period in my V because my victories never end, and I'm here to help you get your victories. Legend, you're worth it. Subscribe.